Good morning, everybody. Afternoon to some of you. I think it's been a minute since I've gone live on this channel, so just wanted to hang out with you for a little bit and talk about what's been going on in recent days. I want to discuss what's happening with George Bush's passing, or the announcement of his passing, and we'll talk recent Q over the last couple days, and then actually I want to get into talking about some of the common anti-Q arguments that we often hear promoted around the internet. And we will talk about them, analyze them, and discuss why these particular anti-Q arguments are baseless. We'll get to that a little later, but first I want to discuss Jorge Bush, or excuse me, should we call him George Scherf Jr.? Interesting name to look up there. Might be the real family name. But George Bush, of course, passed away, or the announcement of his passing was made last night at the mainstream level. And I'm seeing a lot of people, and the same thing happened with John McCain's passing, unfortunately taking to Twitter and taking to their public avenues to talk about how wonderful George Bush was and how much of a patriot and how much of a great man he was. And oh, it's sad to see a lot of people feeling the need to do that. Just because he passed away, it's as if there is this need to, quote, honor and, quote, respect. But I don't personally feel that need. You see, respect to me is something that's earned. It's not deserved. And when I look at that Bush family, it's not a family to me that really deserves any respect. I think they lost any sort of respect long ago when they decided to start committing crimes against humanity. So for me personally, I take the announcement of high officials, corrupt high officials, I take the announcement of their passing as to me, it's a fantastic opportunity to start talking about the truth of the matter, what these people were really about. Because George Bush now is in everybody's minds, it's in their consciousness, so what better time to start talking about the reality of things? And I've had people message me and comment on my things and whatnot, say, have some respect, and it's too soon to start talking about these things. And like I said, no better time. And we need to talk about the Bush family's history in especially George H.W. Bush's father, Prescott Bush, who we could call George Scherf Sr., his connections with the Nazis over in Europe during World War II. I mean, these industrialists were working on both sides of the war because, of course, the deep state, it's a multinational, transnational crime syndicate, multiple crime syndicates that could care less about the name of a nation. All they want is global control. And the Bush family has been instrumental in globalist domination over the past century. So Prescott Bush helping to fund the Nazis, and I was doing some digging this morning. I had actually found that it's very possible that Prescott Bush, so George H.W.'s father, was the, quote, trusted assistant of Nikola Tesla. Very intriguing there. Tesla, the deep state knew. They knew what he was working on. They wanted to handle him at all costs, everything he was trying to do. So there is just the Bush family history runs very deep, and it's very important to understand. It's very important to know. So all these people that are coming out trying to praise this man, no, sorry, I can't do it. I can't do it. To me, it has to be told. The truth has to be told. So, we need to talk about the Bush family, especially George H.W. Bush's involvement in drug trafficking. I mean, George H.W. Bush was a CIA director at one point, so he very well knew about these things. Drug trafficking, blackmail rings, especially pedophile sex rings. I mean, what's the Franklin cover-up all about? Ooh, man. I wish a lot of these people praising the Bush family would research these things. And not just that, but the Bush family's covering up of those free energy technologies. I just mentioned Tesla and the UFO cover-up, things like that. So it's criminal. It's truly crimes against humanity. So these things need to be discussed. We're not going to have a great awakening by avoiding these things. Responsible for Kennedy's assassination, somebody commented. Yep, another thing we can add to that Bush family involvement checklist. So that's what I have to say about that. And funny though, let's bring Q into the picture. So last post we have, I swear, one of these days I'm going to get that Wirecast or OBS set up so I can screen share at the same time I go live. But very last post we have from Q linking a tweet from our favorite Joe M, the one who made the Plan to Save the World videos and the Be the Plan videos and whatnot. He's prolific on Twitter. Joe is great on Twitter. And he was noticing that a James Comey tweet from a couple of weeks ago was very vague. There looked to be some messages in there. And Joe asked, did Herbert Walker die? And he tweeted this like days ago, before the announcement of George H.W. Bush's passing. So Q had said George H.W. Bush, his Secret Service code name was Timberwolf. And in that Comey tweet, it was making references to his dog passing, a very old dog, a friend to the entire big family. Just very odd. So this goes to now reconcile this. What if George H.W. Bush, thank you for the super chat, my friend. What if George H.W. Bush passed away a couple weeks ago? And that James Comey tweet from November 14th about his dog passing was a subtle message from the deep state talking about H.W.'s passing. Could be. George H.W. could have passed away a couple of weeks ago. And what if they last night decided to release that news? They decided to release that news into the mainstream because it was a very good time to do so. Very good time being this weekend, because now that's going to dominate the news stream. It's going to dominate the news stream for the next week, 2 weeks even. And wow, convenient distraction, right? Perfect timing for them to do this. So what would, okay, George H.W. Bush could have passed away a couple of weeks ago. Now they're just publicizing it to distract us. What could they be distracting us from? Well, one thing they're very much distracting us from, Huber's testimony. A lot of people's testimony, actually, over the next week, but especially Huber, December 5th, waiting to testify. Now they're deciding to have George H.W.'s funeral on December 5th. Wow. Very convenient to dominate the news cycles with, right? And not just that, but we had that very intriguing photograph posted on Mike Pence's Twitter yesterday. A photograph of a law enforcement officer wearing a Q patch. It said, "Question the narrative," with a big old Q on it. That patch, boom, right on his chest on one of the pictures that Pence tweeted. Pence had just gotten to Florida to meet with some law enforcement officers, and then he was tweeting about it, tweeted 3 photographs. One of these photographs had that Q patch in there. So, first of all, that was no accident, that photograph. I mean, they inspect these photographs. They very well know who's in the picture, what's in the picture. So that photograph getting released on the vice president's Twitter page was not an accident. Now, the mainstream media very quickly, within half an hour to an hour, wrote a bunch of articles trying to discredit it, trying to say, oh, there's this crazy Q patch on there, and it's this crazy QAnon conspiracy theory, blah, blah, blah. Q even dropped a couple of posts mentioning the Q attacks in this patch. So, boom, new wave of Q attacks. It's as if that specific photograph with that Q patch was meant to get it back into the mainstream, because they knew these propaganda media outlets would try to combat it. So they did that. Mike Pence subsequently deleted that tweet a couple hours later after the mainstream media caught wind of it and started running their articles, and then retweeted the same thing without that picture. So that picture has since been deleted in a tweet. He retweeted the exact same thing without that picture. And wow, well, with this news about Bush's passing, that's also going to dominate the news cycle right now. So all of this Q patch getting out there, news, catching wind of it, now that's been kind of brushed under the rug because of Bush's passing. So multiple things to conveniently distract us from by announcing that Bush's passing was last night or yesterday. So it's as if it was news the deep state was holding on. They were holding on to, for a very convenient timing. Now, some people are asking if George H.W. Bush was McCained. McCained being the colloquialism we could term a deep stater who was basically tribunaled behind the scenes, and then we get a reason on the mainstream for the optics of it. McCain, they said, passed away from brain cancer, when it looked like he was really tribunaled, McCained. Could Bush have been McCained? I don't necessarily think so, because we got that tweet from Comey, and it would have been something that I think Q would have been hinting or giving us some foreknowledge to. So, no, I don't think George H.W. Bush was McCained per se. I think he did pass away. I just think he passed away a couple weeks ago, and the deep state was waiting for the perfect opportune time to drop that news so they could control the news cycle and then distract us from many different things. Distract us from Huber's testimony, distract people from that Q patch, distract people from everything else. So that's what I have to say really about Bush. I mentioned that Q patch, which I wanted to get into, which was really cool. Another proof, man. I mean, I don't even know how these people continue with that, oh, it's fake, it's a LARP narrative. It's obviously not. That's not even an anti-Q argument I want to get into in this video, because it's so obvious that it's not fake and not a LARP. We're going to talk about a few other of the anti-Q arguments in a minute here. But we'll go over a few of these other Q posts from last night before we do that. Let's see here. Many of these posts were discussing, that Clinton Foundation whistleblower. That's right. That's what I wanted to get into. So, of course, last night on Hannity, we had Sarah Carter and John Solomon on Hannity's broadcast. And then John Solomon, in one of the minutes there, basically leaked the news about how there was another Clinton Foundation whistleblower that is coming forward. It's not the whistleblower that got their house raided by the FBI a couple of weeks ago. This is a different Clinton Foundation whistleblower. And Q quickly saying, whoever leaked that, don't reveal anything else. We're not sure. Looks like that wasn't supposed to come out quite yet. But it's out. It's out now. And we are going to hear more about that on Monday, it looks like, as per Q. And as per that broadcast on Hannity as well. That's what John Solomon mentioned, is that we'll be hearing more about that on Monday. And then what was funny to me in watching that is that Sarah Carter's expressions. Like, this woman, when you watch her on a news broadcast, she looks like a person who knows a lot of stuff but ain't saying it. And I'm sure that's the case. And when they were talking about that Clinton Foundation whistleblower, she got this big smile on her face. And towards the very end of the slot, the segment that they had her on, she was discussing about how there's going to be breaking news over the next month. And then she said breaking news over months to come, months and months in the future. So if that's not a warning, boom, I don't know what is. So it's coming, the snowball. That snowball is going to start moving, and it's just going to, boom, hit into some very big things. So I'm very intrigued to see what this Clinton Foundation whistleblower is going to bring us. Another thing that the news of Bush's death is very conveniently distracting people away from. So we had the Clinton Foundation whistleblower, Q then saying, to all those who doubted Sessions and Huber, you will pay the price very soon. It's not that hard. It's not really that hard to, 4D think this stuff think of it, from multi-dimensional aspects. That's one of those anti-Q arguments we could talk about right now that people often try to throw shade on Q by discussing, what do you mean trust Sessions? Sessions got fired. What do you mean trust Sessions? It's like, dude, just because Sessions got fired doesn't mean that the plan goes up in flames or something like that. Sessions did his job as AG that he was supposed to do. Many different jobs. He installed Huber. Huber then worked with his team for the last year investigating all sorts of things. Sessions signed off on every single FBI and DOJ removal or firing that we had. Sessions did his job. And then the point came where Sessions as AG was no longer necessary. So, boom, fired, quit, left, mutual breakup, whatever you want to call it. Now Whitaker's in there. Whitaker is going to be the next acting AG to be used as a part of the plan. You got to understand, that's a big thing to note on the plan. The plan is always a shifting, morphing plan. Moves and countermoves, right? A lot of people expect with a plan in place, it's like there's this structured path that we're supposed to be on in the future, and any deviation from that means that everything goes up in flames. And it's not the case. The plan is the only thing specified about the plan is the generalization. The generalization that the deep state is getting dismantled. That's it. You can't necessarily have any sort of attachments or expectations. I see a lot of people, some people, they are getting butt hurt. They're getting a little butt hurt with Q, and they're like, oh, I'm not on that Q train anymore because, it's as if they had their own expectations in their head as the way things should be, and that's why. It's like they broke their own heart. It's not Q that got them butt hurt, it's themselves because they had these false expectations. So that's something to make note of. Sessions did his job. The plan is a plan, and what? You and I are going to expect to know everything about the plan? It's not, all we're seeing is the symptoms, the effects of it. So don't let yourself get butthurt by your own attachments or expectations. Things are absolutely moving along as they should be. So pain coming, Q said. Q then posting a couple of pictures from a drop of his about 3 months ago of everything that's going on. And I guess we could start talking about those anti-Q arguments here because that's what we're essentially getting into. A lot of what Q is posting these days is like a reiteration of, think about these things, guys. Think about these things. Being sort of like a reminder. A lot of reminders these days. And the reminder in this post from last night, Q was linking all of these arguments as to, counter arguments to the people who say nothing's being done. A lot of people say nothing's being done. Nothing's happening, right? I don't know how big of a rock you have to live under to think that nothing's happening. And not just since Q has hopped on the scene. Ever since Q hopped on the scene, lots of stuff's happening. But even before that, I just think back to 5 years ago when I first started waking up and I was talking to people about these subjects, and it was tough. It was tough to find people that were starting to wake up back then, even just 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now it's, God, everywhere. These conversations are stemming all over the place. People curious, people waking up. So yeah, things are happening. And now, ever since Q's hopped on the scene, let's just discuss the past year. How many board directors, CEOs, prominent businessmen have all resigned, have all stepped down across the board, whether we're talking in big pharma, CDC director resigning, board members of Merck, I believe, resigning, in every industry, the financial industry, of course, in the FBI and the DOJ, how many bad actors have had their power removed there and have been fired? Plenty. Not only that, we have all these sealed indictments. So I mean, cross-reference all these things over the past year. sealed indictments racking up. All these sorts of people stepping back. And then, of course, in Congress, people stepping away as well. All of the, just the crazy, weird events that have gone on the past year. And by weird events, I mean, for instance, that plane getting stolen off the tarmac in Seattle, and then we got the picture of the missile being shot off in Western Washington as well, and then we had that train crash during the times of the memo that was supposed to be released. The train crash, that was really weird. We had, man, all sorts of stuff. You really think that all these things wouldn't be happening if there wasn't some sort of shadow civil war going on? I mean, come on. Come on. So something is absolutely happening. That's lame to say. Ooh, here's a common anti-Q argument I want to talk about. Q's a cult. Q is a cult. This one definitely gets thrown around everywhere. I mean, I've been labeled as a cult member. God, I don't know for how many different things. He's an alien cult member. He's a Q cult member. He's a New Age Luciferian cult member. It's just ridiculous. Cult is that word that people like to use just to discredit very easily. There's a huge emotional charge behind that four-letter C word in cult, you know? And you label anything as a cult and people are automatically going to get triggered, and then they're not going to logically look into that topic quite as much as if it wasn't labeled as a cult. So a lot of people label the whole Q thing and Q follower thing as a cult, and that's just ridiculous, because my answer to that is that you have to separate, the first cult that thinks for itself, right? Jeez. I'll brainwash you, all right? Brainwash into making up your own damn mind and doing your own research. But really, you know, a lot of people that do follow Q, I'm not going to lie, they have somewhat of a cult-like mentality, okay? But that's not Q. That doesn't come from Q at all. You have to separate Q followers from Q's actual drops over the last over a year now. Separate these things. Let's look at the Q followers. Yes, some Q followers do have a very passionate drive. And if somebody comes at them with counter arguments or whatever the case is, they get angry, and you know, that's just the state of the matter, that people are very emotionally charged these days. And you can understand, right? Because a lot of these people looking into Q, these are the conspiracy theorists, quote, conspiracy theorists, that have been called crazy and ridiculed for so long. So now that Q comes along and it's basically validating everything that they've been researching for years, they're going out trying to tell their friends or family or people on the internet about it, and then they catch this flack, they're going to start getting pissed off. They're going to be like, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know anything about Q, blah, blah, blah. So it's not that Q followers are a cult at all. It's not that. It's just they're passionate and understandable. They're passionate. They are emotionally driven because it's well-intentioned passion too. They want people to wake up, you know? They want people to wake up. So sometimes they do get charged and start calling people dumber names or whatever the case is, because they're just like, they want people to get it. They want this great awakening to happen already, right? So no, Q's not a cult. Q followers are not in a cult. Cult-like vibes. It's just ridiculous to say. And anybody who is saying that, oh, Q is a cult, Q is in a cult, they're just too lazy. They're too lazy to do the thinking, do the research for themselves. And pretty much anybody who is throwing out these very baseless anti-Q arguments, it's either, I find it comes from either one of two things within the person. You know, say I'm looking at somebody on the internet who I don't know. I don't know their motives, their intentions. I don't know the backstory behind their lives. But I see them putting out bad information on Q. I think of it as one of two ways. They could be a disinformation agent doing it on purpose, and you can look at the habits, the patterns of the individual to come to the conclusion that maybe they are a disinformation agent. And these are the people who just day in and day out, same anti-Q narrative, same thing, same trolling. those are the people who are probably disinformation agents. But now there's others out there who are probably well-intentioned. They got an ego, right? They think they know more than they really do. And they spend maybe 2 hours looking into Q, looking at bad articles, bad information. And then they think they know everything. And then they write an article or say, oh, Q's fake, Q's the LARP, Q's a cult because of this. It's just, they're kind of outing themselves in a way, outing themselves as not being very good thinkers with this subject. So, yeah, that's how I look at things. It's like either they're a well-intentioned, just misled, or they are trying to mislead. And then you can look at the patterns of the individual to see which one. So we went over the Q is a cult thing, nothing happening thing. Let's see here. Some people say that Q is a psyop like a psyop meaning that it's legit, but it's being done just to placate people or to get everybody to think that Q is going to be this savior that people are then going to just sit on their ass and not do anything because they think they're going to get saved. And if you actually look at what's happened over the course of the last year, because I've been following Q since basically like day 2, probably, that is not the case at all. People are not getting placated to sit on their ass and do nothing because of Q. If you actually look at how many people have been absolutely catalyzed to start sharing memes, sharing information, how many people have started Twitter accounts just because of Q to start sharing information? A lot. How many people have put bumper stickers on their cars and put signs up in public or whatever the case is, started their own YouTube channels and started becoming their own citizen journalist? God, so many people. So to say that Q is a psyop just to make people not do anything, that's ridiculous right there. So, yeah. And how many times in the Q drops do they say, fire up them memes, start activating, right? This Q operation, that's another thing I'll talk about in a sec. You got to stop thinking about who is Q and what is Q. That's very helpful in understanding it. But a lot of people, looking into this Q operation, they just don't realize that a lot of people have been so activated by it. Q is a catalyst, exactly. The people that started Q as the operation, that was one of the things they wanted to do, was to catalyze and activate so many people. Boom, there you go. And I'm kind of writing some things down here. So, no, Q is not placating people, getting them to do nothing. It's actually activated a whole hell of a lot of people to do something. And that's why this Great Awakening has gotten so exponential over the last year. Let's see here. The disinformation is necessary one. Let's touch on that. So, disinformation is necessary. I don't think a lot of people are, a lot of the people who detract from Q don't really comprehend that statement. These guys behind the scenes, whoever they are, who started Q as the intelligence dissemination operation, whoever was behind it that started it, obviously, if they're going to create a back channel to the public that is uncensored, not only are, and they knew this, creating Q, not only are we going to see it, of course, much of that information in the Q drops are meant for us Anons, to decode, analyze, and share with the public. Much of it is meant for us, but of course, who else is going to be researching drops that are meant for the public? The bad guys, all right? Then obviously with a operation like this, you've got to take into account that the bad guys are going to be reading it too. So the only thing that disinformation is necessary means is that because the bad guys are also going to be watching the drops, sometimes, on occasion, there's going to have to be disinformation in there. And it's actually very strategic. It's very tactical for them to do that, because that's then going to catch the bad guys off guard, make them make a mistake that the white hats behind the scenes can then capitalize on. You see, it's very simple. The disinformation thing is very simple, and that's the only reason why disinformation is necessary, is because Bad guys are watching the drops just as much as everybody is watching the drops. Literally everybody. So a lot of the anti-Qers like to take the disinformation as necessary shtick and then say, well, that means all of Q can be disinformation. But it's not. Because if you actually look into many of these, 2,500 drops now over the last couple of years, God, how much legit information is in them? Most of it all is legit information. Only a tiny little piece is disinformation, and again, that is necessary. So let's see here, what else can we get into? I just mentioned the fact of it really helps to separate the need to figure out who Q is, or even talk about Q being a person. Q is not a person. There's not one person dropping this information for us or spearheading this whole intelligence operation. Think of it as that. Think of it as an operation. So if you actually talk about it with your friends and family and whoever as if Q is an operation, it actually helps to get them to understand a little bit better. Give them the perspective of it being that. You know, Q's not a person. It's a thing. It's an op. It's basically a plan, for lack of a better term, that was installed a year ago for, many different reasons that we won't go into here, to activate us, give us a sense of direction, catch the bad guys off guard. Many different reasons. There's many different reasons for it, but it's an operation. It's not a person. It's not a cult. Nothing's happening. Something's definitely happening. Q wasn't a psyop to placate people or to, some people like to say it makes Trump or it makes the MAGA movement look bad. And to that I say, no, Q is really, what they're doing with Q is outing those who are trying to lead us astray, right? They're outing the COINTELPRO assets. So it's not making MAGA look bad. All these fools that claim to be MAGA, who are really fake MAGA, they're the ones that are making it look bad, right? And, that's what I wanted to mention about Q being a cult. Look at the folks who are saying that. Cult about anything. Could be cult about Q, cult about this, cult about that. Usually those who are pointing the finger saying cult, cult, are projecting. And they're actually the ones giving out the cult-like thinking. They're the ones saying, you should be thinking this way. Q is a cult. Listen to what I say. I have the truth. You should be thinking what I'm thinking right now. That is literally cult-like thinking. You're telling other people what to think. That's a cult. So anybody that's trying to promote Q as a cult or this cult, that cult, they're the ones promoting cult-like thinking in and of themselves. It's all projection there. Let's see here. Q is, I saw somebody comment this earlier. I wanted to, hope porn. That's a good one, hope porn. Hope porn kind of fits into the nothing is happening category because people are saying, Q is just hope porn to, placate people, make them think something's happening when nothing's really happening. Same kind of thing. Something's obviously happening, so it's not hope porn. That's just easy deduction there. And the Q is Lord one. I do want to make a note of that. I saw somebody comment that earlier, and this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier on how we have been managed as a species, as a society, global society really, not just, I'm not talking nationally here, but globally, we have been farmed as a human species with this need to worship. A lot of people have a very deep-rooted fear of stepping outside of the box and being an individual and being their own sovereign individual that is truly free thinking. A lot of people, they get attached to this idol, that idol. I need to worship this savior. I need to worship this book. I need to worship this and that. And it's human nature. It's human nature. And we've been farmed to do this because our human farmers, the elite, the deep state, they want us to worship what they bring out to the public, whether that's religious dogma or scientific dogma or whatever the case is. I mean, we've groomed to be worshipers because they want us to worship them. So it's just a lot of people are having a tough time breaking those mental shackles. And it's not Q's fault. Q is trying to help us break our mental shackles, you know? So you have to understand that. It's not Q, it's just people. And people are breaking free from their mental shackles. I see a lot more people these days breaking free of the scientific dogmas. They're really questioning, whoa, those scientists, they can be paid off, right? Wow, that study, that data can be easily fudged, can it? Yeah, so people are breaking free from the scientific dogma. People are breaking free from the religious dogma too. Again, that's a very complicated subject there. And I still see a lot of people kind of caught up by religious dogma, but people are breaking free from it as well. So, yeah, you know, Q is Lord. I personally, I don't see anybody as being a savior. To me, it's just how can I use this to connect us all, bring us all together. And Q is doing that. Q is absolutely connecting a whole lot of people. There's a whole lot of people in my life I would not be talking to or have met if it weren't for Q. So, you know, nobody is infallible. Even Trump himself is not infallible, is not God. But, God damn it, Trump is doing some amazing things and doing some necessary things for this country and for humanity. So, that goes to be said. And really, you know, yeah, a lot of people see Trump as a savior. They see certain things outside of themselves as the savior, but it all boils down to you as an individual, you inside yourself, you know. Even somebody just commented, Jesus saves. Well, Jesus isn't doing the saving. You're doing the saving because you are choosing to follow the word of Jesus, right? And Trump's not doing the saving. You're doing the saving because you are making the choice to see Trump as doing great things for the country, right? So Q is not saving us. Q is just acting as the way shower. It's you making the choice to look at the Q drops logically and save yourself, right? It's easy. There's all this outward attachment that we've been ingrained. It's kind of that worship thing I was talking about. We've been ingrained to worship stuff outside of ourselves and not realize that it's your own choice that is saving you. It's you saving yourself. There's just things out there that are helping you that you're using as a tool. You can use Trump, you can use Q, you can use this religious book, that religious book. I can use any of these books right here as tools to help me save myself. See? So there's a big shift in responsibility, in self-responsibility that happens in your perspective when you start thinking that way. When you start thinking it's you inside yourself, everything outside of you is just a tool to raise your consciousness with. So that's a philosophical rant there that I hope you enjoyed. But it's very needed. It's a very needed understanding, I believe. Yeah, I'll lose Christians with my comments. That's okay. But there's a lot of Christians out there who are very logical thinking too. And, you know, they understand that the Bible is very allegorical in nature. There's a lot of truths in the Bible, but it's not superficial. It goes very deep. And you know, the Bible itself is not the end-all, be-all. There's a lot of other books out there, a lot of other avenues to research outside of that are very helpful as well. Yeah, Q quotes Bible verses, absolutely. I'm sure those guys behind the scenes there that started Q, I'm sure many of them are very religious in nature. And I don't have a problem with that. Actually, that's something we could talk about here. I've had some people talk to me about the fact that because Q quotes Bible verses, that they don't like Q. Q sets them off. They're like, oh, it's this religious upbreathing. You know, they're trying to mind control us with religion. It's like, no, not at all, man. You know, that's their particular upbringing. And I'm not going to hold that against anybody. And I'm not saying the Bible isn't helpful. Absolutely it is. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But what I'm saying is the Bible isn't necessary, you know? Me personally, I grew up hardcore atheist, and I'm not that way anymore. I'm not atheist. I'm very spiritual in nature. I do absolutely see a creator in things, but it wasn't the Bible that helped me get that opinion. It was actually a lot of more scientific research and philosophical understandings, a lot more than just the Bible. But Q quoting the Bible doesn't turn me off at all. In fact, we're fighting a force on this planet who are a Luciferian bunch, and I'm more than happy that Q quotes the Bible, because they see that and go, oh God, you know? Let's see here. And then again, Q also mentions the need to pray. Prayer is not a action that's limited to just Christianity. Prayer is worldwide. And the ideas behind prayer, you know, all of our consciousness, conchi, being connected through this electric universe. You know, I use a language that's much different than other people use, but we all say the same things. One truth, many songs. And the idea of prayer is absolutely legitimate, and it should be done. If you're not doing it, do it. Pray and meditate. Prayer and meditation are similar things, but different in nature. Prayer is a focused intention. It's a focused thought that you're putting out there to help manifest. Meditation is the quelling of all thoughts to help you connect yourself in with a higher aspect of you. So they're different, but they're similar. But absolutely pray, you know. Pray to whatever force out there that you need to. Pray to, you know, if you label yourself as a Christian, there you go. Pray as necessary to which you see fit. Personally, I don't label myself, but I have much of the same ideas and same intentions as people out there who subscribe to different belief systems. That's okay. Let's see here. All right, guys, this has been a fun conversation. I think I went through most of the anti-Q stuff I wanted to. Prayers to all of you. And I think the next week is going to be very fun. Be very, very fun. So, somebody said some particular ways are the only way to be saved. The only way to be saved is for you to take it upon yourself to do it. Nothing out there is going to save you but your own self. And nothing out there is going to save this nation, save this planet, but ourselves, right? Where we go one, we go all, right? So it's up to us. Nothing out there is going to do it for us. That's why they installed Q, is to get us all working together for a common goal that is outing those deep staters, you know? And then again, I mean, you look at some of the content that's in the Q posts, that's not a psyop. Well, by technical definition, Q is a psyop. It's a psychological operation, but it's not fake. It's not a LARP, and it's a psyop to get us connecting the dots more, you know? So we're the only ones that are going to be able to save ourselves, truly. So there we go, guys. Take care. Have a good one.